What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome to my review of Avowed. Now, this is based on roughly 40 hours of time being played. At this point, I have finished the main story, done a fair amount of the content in the game, including side content. I did save a little bit of stuff here and there, so I'd have something to enjoy in a second playthrough, but overall, I consider my time with the game complete, and we are ready to talk about it. Now, this review is mainly going to be focused on me just kind of running around this zone and exploring. We're not going to be talking about any big story developments or any key NPCs. We got Aedyr here, one of our followers. She wanted to say hi. And I really want to focus on kind of the gameplay and how this feels different compared to similar games in the first-person RPG genre. So with that being said, let's jump in. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Obsidian, this is the same group that did Outer Wilds, as well as the Pillars of Eternity franchise. I actually wasn't a big fan of Outer Wilds. I tried to get into it, just didn't really enjoy it all that much, but I do tend to enjoy fantasy style games more. So I went into this a little bit more excited just because that's how it's always been. I've always enjoyed Skyrim more than I've enjoyed Fallout, for example. But overall, my time in Avowed has been pretty positive. There's definitely a couple things that I think could improve the overall experience, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I am looking forward to playing it again with a separate build. Now, in terms of raw gameplay, the game does feel almost like a faster Skyrim at first. That's the most immediate thought that came to me as I started playing. Our movement is very quick. We have the ability to slide. When it comes to ledges, anything that has a top, we're able to climb up on top of like that. And instead of doing like Skyrim hops, you're basically going to be, getting on top of ledges and then taking jumps. And there's a lot of clambering, which I really liked. The overall movement and flow of the gameplay felt very, very good. Probably some of the best I've had in the first person. Not quite at the level of Cyberpunk, but, Cyberpunk movement is just amazing, in my opinion. But I did enjoy the movement a lot here. And like I said, it almost felt like, oh, this is faster Skyrim. Like, this is what Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have to feel like. That's what it's going to have to compete with. In terms of the combat is very snappy, especially when it comes to using the guns, which I was a big fan of. So just to talk about gun combat for a second, you can just, shoot and then quickly reload, or you can charge up and do a power attack. Pretty much every weapon in the game has a power attack. I think do I have a melee? I don't have a single melee weapon right now. Let me see if I can get one off a corpse. I'll show off melee a little bit if I can find one. But basically, weapons have kind of simple combos, like 3-hit combos you can do, and then on top of that, you can charge up to do power attacks. Enemies also have a stagger gauge, which was that yellow gauge you saw under them. They died incredibly fast, so you didn't really see too much of it. But as you blow through that stagger gauge, eventually you'll open enemies up to a big critical hit where you'll do either a fancy combo finisher or a blank range execution if you're using one of the guns. The combat is a lot of fun. I think first-person games tend to struggle in combat, and I ended up opting for a ranger style of play. In terms of gameplay styles, you have fighter, ranger, and wizard, which we'll talk more about those in a little bit. But the fact that I could dual wield pistols, I had to go for the Danny DeVito build. So anyway, I started blasting. But I did have a lot of fun with the gameplay. I ended up using a one-hander and a pistol for a fair amount of it. I ended up swapping back and forth between a bow and the arquebus for some longer ranged encounters. And then there was even a period where I was working with a two-hander. But overall, I did enjoy the gameplay, walking around, lighting up big hits on enemies. The hits do feel very beefy when they go out, which is something that's enjoyable. The bow gameplay feels very good, very snappy. I didn't dabble at all with casting, so I can't speak to that, but some friends that have been reviewing have been doing casting, and they've mentioned that casting is a lot of fun, especially doing stuff like double wands. I will say the sword play was pretty fun, especially once you get access to parry, because there's a big emphasis around just getting, instant parries with your shield and then following up with attacks. But overall, like I said, I mainly focused on guns. Going with a gun and a one-hander actually felt really good. Kind of fulfilled that mercenary fantasy that I was looking for with Path of Exile 2 that I didn't quite get. But probably the biggest takeaway here is that in general, the gameplay feels good. Running around, blasting enemies. We're able to do side dodges. We're able to do back dodges. We're able to, run and be like, I got to get the hell out of here, and then jump and go. You can see just in general, the clambering and the movement is very, very fast, which is something that I think felt really good in the game and the overall flow of the gameplay. Now, the gameplay isn't all peaches. I will say that when it comes to overall gameplay, I do wish the game had some more enemy variety. I think enemy variety is probably the weakest aspect of the game. It's not terrible, but it definitely could have been better. And then also when it comes to loot variety, I think there's some things that could have been done to improve the overall loot system in the game. And just to pull up the inventory and talk about that a little bit. So the way loot will work is you can find weapons and they're going to range from basically common, and they're going to upgrade from like common to uncommon to rare to, I think it's superb, and then eventually you get up to legendary. And in each of these areas, there are 3 tiers. So I can have like legendary 1, 2, 3, and then when it's at 3, that would be max. Now, weapons that are considered unique, like this or like this, there's going to have a special perk on them. Here, actually, let's just go over to a camp. That would be a better way for me to show this off and talk about it. But so, unique weapons can be upgraded across tiers. Non-unique weapons cannot. So the idea is ultimately what it kind of boils down to is you're going to find a unique weapon. You're going to go to your enchantment station here, and then I can, pick up either this perk on it, or I can pick up this perk on it. So there's a little bit of customization on your weapon. And then over here, I'm able to upgrade it. So you can see common, fine, exceptional, superb, legendary. Now, regular weapons, you're not able to upgrade them across tiers. So like this common pistol, I don't even have the materials, but actually maybe you can. I don't know. I never tried because the material that you need to get it up doesn't count. But so, I mean, basically the point is you're going to end up spending your materials on upgrading unique weapons. Nobody's going to be upgrading a basic wand or a basic pistol because it can't go up to legendary anyway. And then on top of that, you're not getting any perk out of it. They're essentially equal to a regular weapon. They're just perkless. But so what ultimately this boiled down to is you had a system where you would just get by with whatever weapon you had until you found a unique weapon that kind of fulfilled the gameplay role that you were looking for. So for me, that was pistols, that was swords, spears, the arquebus, bows, stuff like that. And once I had a unique, I would just, pour all of my unique upgrade materials into that. But so what you ended up having happen with the loot is most of the time when you found loot, you didn't really care about it unless it was a unique, because you were either getting a unique or alternatively you were getting upgrade materials to just further your own unique. And so on one hand, it was really nice that I was able to upgrade my unique stuff, and something that I really liked, like what I have here is this. I have one pistol where when I get the kill with it, it increases my reload speed, and the other pistol which does like a shock AoE. So being able to upgrade and keep those for a long portion of the gameplay was pretty nice because it had a playstyle that I had adapted to and was able to just flow with. At the same time, it kind of took away from the excitement finding loot, because most of the time I would just get more upgrade materials, and I was like, cool, I'm making my thing that I was already using better. So I really would have liked to see some more uniques. Honestly, I think the amount of uniques you could find in the world probably should have been doubled. Just found some unique boots. And then on top of that, unique gear just has perks. So you're always going to be doing uniques, whereas something like this is very, very simple. 10% dodge distance, I'm getting max essence and experience smaller hit reactions. This reduces elemental damage across the board and doubles my stamina regen rate. So ultimately, you ended up in a cycle where you were just unique hunting the entire time, which I'm not against, but because of that, I would have liked there to be more uniques. I also think the game could have benefited from giving us some type of crafting, because we find a bunch of crafting materials that we're able to utilize to upgrade these weapons. But once your weapons are upgraded, you just have a lot of them sitting around. If I go over here, I have 24 beetle shells and 29 dank spores, and these are all different materials that I would use to take something and upgrade that unique perk. But you end up having so many that it feels like the lack of a proper enchanting system or a way to take stuff that wasn't unique and turn it unique, it just feels like a big lost opportunity and something that have really been welcome in this world. But despite that, I mean, I did find enough weapons to keep things interesting. I think throughout my playthrough, I probably went through about 10 or 15 different weapons, different arquebuses that I was using, different bows, different pistols. I used maces for a little bit. I used spears for a little bit. I had a sword at the start that I really liked. And so I was swapping back and forth between weapons. I just would have liked more, is all. But overall, I'd say my gameplay experience was positive. There's a fair amount here. It's just one of those things where, you know, when I'm playing a first-person RPG, I always want more. Moving on from there to the world design. So the world isn't exactly a pure open-ended as Skyrim is. We basically have sectioned off zones. So just to show this one map. So this is Shatterscarp. And this is like the third region of the game. The maps are fairly large. I'd say each map is going to take you 10 to 15 hours, depending on how in-depth you're exploring each map. And then in some cases, there's going to be like caverns and whatnot that you can find and explore and go down into. Like over there, there's basically like a dungeon if I can make my way all the way over there and get into it. But it's not Skyrim-like in the sense that, oh, hey, you're going to go wherever you want at the start of the game. You know, you're going to do the first zone. After you're done with the first zone, you're going to move on to the second zone. After that, to the third, etc., etc. And so there is a strict exploration in the overall world design. Ooh. A second. Why are you not firing up? Am I using the wrong pistol? That's why. So like here, this is an example of, this is probably a treasure vault. So there's like 3 different things I need to hit. And if I can find all of them, I can pop this open. So we're going to look for that while I'm talking. But we also have these grenade seeds that we can find. And with the grenades, we can do a couple different things. So, you know, fire grenades, we're going to be able to burn stuff away. Explosive grenades will blow up walls. Electric grenades, we could use those to activate electrical devices. We could also use them to shock enemies. The frost grenades in particular were probably the ones I liked the most, because we could use those to create little frost, like lily pads, to cross water, which was a pretty cool mechanic. But so there's a lot going on with the world design and exploration and finding areas to explore. I think one of the exploration elements that I enjoyed the most actually is there's totems you can find. 1 totem in each zone, and those totems will give you access to some pretty cool passive buffs. And we basically got little treasure hunts. So, you know, like this, where the fungal forest halts, among ruins the changed totem exalts. And you have these riddles. And so this was probably the most fun I had with the game, because I got the riddles and I was like, find this stuff, and it's just figuring out, okay, fields of slumber. Okay, where's the fields of slumber at? Or a silent village, spirits still shriek. Okay, is there a village somewhere that has like ghosts or shrieking spirits? And so stuff like that was super fun. Like I said, that was probably the most fun I had, was just hunting down these treasures. We also have treasure maps in the game, which were pretty fun. Where I don't have any. They're not showing up, I guess, because oh, here we go, show completed. Probably help, right? So we have treasure maps like this where you're going to get like an outline of something, and it's like, hey, there's something there. Go find where this is at on the map. There's something there. And it's usually unique here that you'll find. But so from a world design exploration, I had a lot of fun doing that. You know, just exploring for totems and treasures, that was definitely the most enjoyable portion of the experience, I think. But overall, I think I did like the world design. Can I get down there? No, that looks like death. Let's try anyway. Hold up, bro. Whoa, oh, nope. Yeah, okay. That's like an out-of-bounds spot. When you die, you're just going to respawn at whatever your last save was. So no real concerns there. You can freely go between zones all the way up until the very end. When you reach the point of no return, and the game is very explicit in that. Like, it tells you, you know, hey, when you begin doing this, you're not going to be going any further. Make sure you're done everything that you want done. In terms of the zone diversity, I guess we could talk about that real fast. In the Living Lands, we have 4 major zones we're going to do. Dawnshore, which is our initial opening zone. Kind of just like, I guess, more of the plains. I don't know if plains is appropriate, but kind of like plains, forests, relatively simple. Emerald Stair, very lush forest, very heavily wooded. Shatterscarp, which is where we're at right now, is kind of our deserty, mountainous region. And then the last one is like a volcanic region with like volcanic and sulfur and coral, and pretty cool zone overall. But so decent amount of biome diversity. Of course, then we have our final zone, which I'm not going to talk about. It's not really a final zone, more a final, I guess a dungeon would be a more appropriate description. But that was very much its own thing as well. Spend an hour or 2 in there doing stuff. This is what I gotta do. Bust that open. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? Ah, see, like this is what I'm talking about, man. Like that That little bit of exploring, stuff like this is what I really enjoy, is finding things I gotta break open to find treasures. But in general, yeah, world design, I thought they did a really good job here. If you're going into this with the expectation that you're going to get, you know, Mega Skyrim, I go anywhere I want, anytime I want, that's not what you're going to get. But I do think that the game being more structured wasn't a bad thing. I will say that I wish enemies respawned. Like, as you're clearing out zones, you'll notice there's not a lot for me to fight because I spent a lot of time clearing out the map. What do we got? Killing an enemy, moderate shock, and bonus shock. It's pretty cool. But I really would have liked there to be, like, you know, something that respawned enemies, whether it be by, like, you know, a rest that's going to respawn enemies, so you could just, you know, go around and find more stuff to kill, because you get to a point where you're like, all right, well, I've killed basically everything, and you're just kind of running around looking for treasures. In terms of story, I actually really enjoyed the story here. It is kind of, there's a little bit of gray morality, but I'd say overwhelmingly it's more black and white, and, like, you know, there is this outcome or there's this outcome, and, you know, decisions are very explicit with, like, one is kind of the good decision, one is kind of the bad decision. But there were some more gray moral choices, which is something that I think is really important in RPGs, you know. You know, I think it's okay if games have the, like, you know, are you a good guy or a bad guy? But I always really like when there are decisions that, like, really make you think about what you want to do. Particular, like, this, the decision in the final zone I struggled with a lot, because I didn't like either outcome, because I didn't really align with the beliefs of, like, the NPCs who were deciding that final outcome. I was like, I don't like you, but your idea isn't much better. You're all assholes. Maybe everyone just goes and screws themselves. So in general, I liked the progression of the story and the dilemmas that it met the player with. There's also a big overarching choice for the entirety of the game. And then at the tail end of the game, there's, like, a secondary overarching choice that's kind of the culmination of all your prior choices. So I like that approach that they went with. It felt like I was making some pretty impactful choices. One thing I will say is at the end of the game, I did get, like, a little epilogue that touched base on all the choices of my companions, because each of your companions has, like, a closeout and a personal journey they go through as well. But I would have liked to have just a little bit more epilogue at the end on, like, what my final choice with, like, how I decided shit was going to go down, like what the end result was kind of just left, like, a bit mysterious, which I was like, no, tell me more. I want to know more about what happened. But overall, very much enjoyed the story. In terms of graphic design, I think the graphics look pretty good here. You know, this is, from my understanding, I believe this is Unreal Engine 5. Definitely a bit on the stylized side. It doesn't have, like, the grittiness that something like Skyrim has. It's a bit more colorful, but I like the overall graphics here. I think everything looked good. Let me summon up my bear, go fight these things. A lot of particle effects, especially with the magic. You know, you're seeing particle effects all over. These little purple orbs, those are orbs of essence that will appear anytime we kill enemies, and that's basically what we use to cast spells or our abilities. We also have just potions that we can chug. As you can see, the potion animation very, very fast. But so that it's a pretty good flow. I think everything comes together. You know, the regions, the things look beautiful. Obviously, this is on PC. Pretty much everything is maxed out in terms of graphics, but I think the graphics look beautiful. I had a lot of fun exploring. And given this is just the base, you know, I think that people are probably going to do, I mean, well, I don't know what kind of mod support the game has, but I would assume people are going to do some pretty crazy stuff once they start modding the game, whether that's, you know, companions or spells or new weapons or whatever the case ends up being. In terms of audio design was pretty good. I think the sound effects are very snappy. The sound cues when, like, different attacks are incoming or whatever the case may be. That everything sounds good. You know, you can hear the residuals right now of my guy being on fire and whatnot. You can hear the footsteps. You can hear the slides. I think sound effects were really good. Music, for the most part, I think was more just kind of background. Like, there wasn't any, you know, big epic score that I recall that really stood out to me. And that's something that, I didn't really think that much about while playing, but now thinking back onto it during the review, it's kind of like, huh, that's true. There wasn't really any moment. I think back to like, Skyrim and like the Dovahkiin, like, oh, like that, the Dovahkiin music is something that I'm always going to remember. And we didn't really have anything like that in this game now that I'm really sitting down and thinking about it. So, but overall we had more background music, I guess I would describe it as. So, as long as you're okay with that, I wouldn't say it was bad. It's just, it's background music. Which, by the way, I know I keep getting, I'm slowing down every time I shoot. That's not just a core gameplay mechanic. That's actually a perk that I have. So I just want to call that out, because I'm sure somebody's going to be like, why is he, every single shot he's slowing time? Like, I specifically, when I aim and do a power shot, I'm slowing down time 75%, which is absolutely busted for hitting the headshots. Overall, for the length and the price, I think it was pretty good here. Like I said, first playthrough, I clocked in 40 hours. And there's stuff even in this video right now that I'm discovering that I didn't know about, that area where we just found this cool new electric bow that I'm fiddling around with. There was the area where, we follow this guy around, that door that I just went by that I didn't have the key for. So there's definitely enough, you're going to get a decent chunk for your price. I think most people will probably clock in somewhere in the 40 to 50 hour range for a single playthrough. At least that's the overall impression I've gotten talking to some other people that have been reviewing the game in the review Discord so far. In terms of bugs and performance, so performance has been absolutely stellar. I don't remember if the game had an FPS option. Let me confirm real fast. I think it did. We have graphics, frame limit unlimited. I thought there was something that showed your frame limit. Well, anyway, frame limit has been really good for the most part. I'd say I was probably averaging somewhere in the probably the 80-ish range. NVIDIA overlay it was working earlier when I had it in the first zone. Like right now I'm sitting at, it just says FPS not available, so that's nice. But everything feels smooth. I mean, hopefully the video shows that. I would say we're probably pushing, if I'm just to eye it, I would say it's probably around 70, 75 on average on a 4090. Everything cranked to ultra, ray tracing on, global illumination, all that stuff. Last thing would be bugs. Now, when it comes to bugs, this is a little bit of an iffy topic. And the reason I say that is there are quite a few bugs I encountered in my playthrough that were pretty shocking. Like, I encountered a straight up hard lock that would have permanently locked you out of progression in Act 2. A couple dialogue bugs here and there where like character voices would be lower than normal, or characters had names that weren't their correct names. And some of this is more minor. Some of this is obviously, that's pretty cool. Some of this is more serious, like the hard lock bug, for example. And it was a little bit weird because for the review period, I was able to join a Discord with other people that were reviewing, and the devs were there to answer questions. And during that experience, we were like reporting things we found that were bugged. Like, hey, like the thing I talked about, I was like, hey, there's a spot in Act 2 where Giada's going to start this dialogue, and I already did these events, and now I can't fast travel, and the map is locked. And they were like, oh, can you reload a prior save? And I'm like, I can. And they're like, we are going to fix this. So that would be my biggest concern for this, because there were a lot of bugs that I encountered during the review period that the hope would be those are fixed and ready to go for launch. And I mean, at least based on the discussions we've had with devs in that Discord, it sounds like they are hard working away at this stuff and identifying it. Typically that's not really the case during review. You know, usually when you're reviewing something, a lot of that stuff is fixed up ahead of time. You know, especially stuff like the hard lock. And I know, especially in an open world RPG, you know, there's going to be things that just slip through the cracks. I mean, God, look at there's bugs that are still discovered in Skyrim to this day. So I do give them a little bit more leeway on that, because, you know, that's kind of the nature of the beast with a game this large. You know, even now there's still stuff in Elden Ring that we can do that's clearly not intended. But I just, you know, it's one of those things that I do want people to be aware of it. Is they're being made aware of a lot of the stuff. I think they're going to patch up a lot of the stuff, but, you know, when you're playing a game that's massive open world RPG like this, there's going to be some bugs, and I certainly encountered some of them. But so overall, what would I give this as a final score?
Trusting the Archmage was a mistake.
Honestly, I usually like going for my 5-point scale, but I would probably go for a 10-point scale on this, and I think I put this right at around a 9 out of 10. I think this is really fun. I think that's probably the biggest thing that stood out to me is the last time I had this much fun in a first-person RPG was like probably Phantom Pain in Cyberpunk. Like there's a very rich world here. There's a ton to explore. You know, treasures abound, and I definitely wish there was a little bit more enemy variety, and I wish there was even more treasures to find, more uniques. And you know, I really hope they get the bugs cleaned up, but there was nothing that I would say like outright negatively impacted the experience. There's definitely a lot of areas that could go above and beyond, that could be improved further, but the overall experience was a lot of fun, and it's enough that I do want to go back in. I want to go in, I want to try a caster playthrough. I might even do like a caster warrior hybrid, which you can do hybrid builds like that. You have a lot of freedom in terms of how you spec your character. So, you know, overall, if you're looking for a RPG that you're just going to be able to really sink your teeth into and have a good job exploring, I think this is going to make the mark. Like I said, there are a couple things to keep in mind, like enemy variety could be a little bit better. Loot is mainly going to be you trying to hunt down a dope unique weapon, and then you're probably going to stick with that until you find a dope or unique weapon, as opposed to, you know, really using the more basic stuff that's out in the world. But I think those are small concessions to make in the face of what is overall just a really, really excellent journey. That's a lot of fun and a story that is really going to draw you. So, all that being said, we're going to wrap things up here. Like I said, full series is already done. I think it clocked in 56 episodes, so pretty beefy Let's Play. Quite a few of those being an hour in length. And then from here, the next big game I plan on working on, well, obviously we're already streaming Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, so if you want to check out that's going to be in streams. Otherwise, the next episodic series is planned as Monster Hunter Wilds. So either way, thanks for coming on by and checking out the review. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will catch y'all next time.